Welcome back to Blue Collar Speed and Repair and what should be a very exciting video. I'm hoping by the end of it, we have our 59 Apache on the road for the first time in who knows how long. We're not really sure. Of course, first, we have a lot of parts to install. Buckle up, it's gonna be a long one. So if you've been following along with our 59 project, you know we've done a ton of work to this thing. Most recently, we got all the glass installed in preparation for getting this thing on the road. Biggest hurdle we have today is actually wiring. There's not an inch of wiring in this pickup. So we got a easy wiring kit, literally called Easy Wiring. These are super cheap. I'm sure they're made, you know, China or Taiwan or something, but they're less than 200 bucks. It's the same kit we put in the Boss Lady 63 Galaxy. It actually worked out really good. The good thing is these are like pre-set up for a GM. For instance, that's a GM dimmer switch, headlight switch. It comes with a couple headlight connectors, GM alternator plug. Those are ignition switch. GM ignition switch. One change I do make to these is it just comes with a fusible link that you wire in. So I actually have a mega fuse to run protection on the entire system. Other than that, we've got, I didn't realize this came with an alternator plug, so we got new alternator plugs. Throw those on the shelf, save them for a rainy day. Universal brake light switch, battery cable ends, ignition switch, headlight switch, headlights, headlight connectors, all the adjusters. We got to mount a hood. We got shocks for the front. We've got gauges. We've got tail lights. We've got marker lights. We've got airbag stuff. We've got a radiator to install. We've got battery and battery box to install. There is a bunch of stuff to do. But we're going to start knocking it out. Like I said, the plan is to be driving this thing by the end of this video. So I think we're going to start with the radiator. If you've watched on this channel before, we mounted the radiator, the original one that's sitting on top there. We mounted, and when we went to put water in it, it leaked all over the place. So I don't know if I drilled too deep or put too long of a bolt or what. So we're going to try again. Unfortunately, that's my costly mistake, but it happens when you're building stuff. So let's get that set up. So that's in place so we can get wiring ran to it, and then we'll move on to airbag stuff. I'd like to have the compressors in place and the valves in place and all that stuff so we can run wires to them as well. So a couple tools out, drill, try not to ruin another radiator, and see if we can get this installed. This is a Summit brand radiator and fan combo set that I bought years ago. It's actually designed to fit in a square body Chevy. For those of you that don't know or haven't been following along, most of the parts out of this pickup came from a 74 square body C10 that I was building and unfortunately got wrecked. This was in it, and we adapted this to fit in our 59. You can see across the top we use 1/4 inch 4 riv nuts. 4 1/4 inch riv nuts correspond to these 4 holes that we kind of made a plate to kind of hold the radiator in place. And then on the bottom there's 2 more. Now when we got this mounted and installed, and when I tried to put water in it, it was leaking out of both sides on the bottom. So I don't know if I used like a step bit. I don't know if I went too far and hit the coils inside, or if the end of the riv nut tool hit or what. So we're gonna have to try to replicate this and be as careful as possible in order not to damage our new one. So let me grab the riv nut tool. I believe it looks like we used the outside square holes and just rounded them off. If you look at this, I didn't remember that. I thought we made our own. So let me get a drill bit, and I got an idea to make it so we don't go too deep with that, and then we get the riv nut tool out and make sure we we don't stick it in too far. Yeah. So this is what's known as a riv nut, if you've never seen one before. It uses this tool, and when you squeeze this, it compresses this little riv nut, and basically like a rivet kind of. And the idea of this is to be able to create threads in thinner metal like this. Worked perfect for what we were doing. I think I made a mistake. So this is a step bit, actually came with the kit. I think it went to the 4th step is where we needed to go. And I think that's where our issue ended up. I think I went just a little too far. So I measured the riv nut. It's 352 thousandths or so at the kind of knurled area there. So this is a, I believe it was 21/64. This is 358 thousandths. So just a hair bigger than that. And then I just put a chunk of 3/8 fuel line over it. Let's set this down. So this will compress just a little bit when we drill our hole, but obviously won't go very deep into our metal. So I'm hoping to use this and not make the same mistake we made before. Okay. So that should have kept us plenty far away from our actual radiator core. Keep us from repeating the same issue we had before. I'm not going to go too tight. As this squeezes down, you thread in a little farther and then you end up with the threads outside the end. I'm going to keep from doing that on this because I don't want to end up in that, end up into the core. I took a quick measurement off of our old radiator. The riv nuts are 1 inch exactly up from the bottom. So I drew a line at 1 inch all the way across. First hole was 3 3/8 from the edge of this tank, and I don't know if these are built exactly the same, but we're going to go off of that. Mark that. Lined everything up, just marked the other holes. So we shouldn't have a problem with the holes being off or anything. So I'm gonna buzz 4 holes in this, put 4 rib nuts in. The shroud itself, or the fan shroud, is just 4 self-tappers. So I'm gonna swap that over. And then it has this like plug. I don't like the plug. I'd rather use the cap like we have on this one. So I'm gonna swap that over real quick. And then we can go install it in the truck and see if it actually holds some fluid. Alright. Now what? I feel like I need a shorter bolt. See what I can find. 3/4 inch is the shortest I have. So I'm going to add a couple extra washers just to be safe. I think these are just short enough, but I'd rather put in a 1/2 inch bolt, a 1/2 inch long rather, so we don't risk damaging. For now, I'll just add a couple washers to it. Let me get the other cover and hood latch set up. Got everything installed up here. This front piece was fighting me a little bit. There's a backing piece that goes around the hood latch. And the space between it and this outside edge is kind of thin, so you had to get this kind of around the grill shroud. Didn't realize that fought me a little bit. Got all this stuff installed, and I crawled underneath in order to get the bottom 2 bolts started before I tightened the top 4 on the radiator, and ran into a snag. We put the rib nuts in on the bottom. That one's on the inside. There's 2 holes. That one's on the outside. I did both on the inside. Of course, it's right above the steering box, so I can't do it, fix it with it installed. So now I get to take all that back apart, get the radiator back out, and redo 1 rib nut. What a pain. Nothing's ever easy. It is what it is. You know, these things happen. I'm gonna knock that out real quick. Also have a new fan temperature switch. This will control our relays for the fans. That will go in the intake right there on that side. And this is the temp switch for our new gauges, which we'll get to in a little bit. That goes in the driver's side cylinder head. So let me fix this rib nut, get all this stuff hooked back up, get the bolt in the right place. I'll get those installed. You also notice I capped off the heater hoses. This cab's not set up for a heater currently. And instead of looping the 2 together, I just plugged them. I did drill a small hole in the actual face of the thermostat. That'll allow us to bleed the coolant as well as just a little bit of circulation as this thing warms up before the thermostat opens. So the water pump won't cavitate or anything. Got our rib nut deal straightened out. Got the fan temp switch hooked up as well as the temp switch for the gauge. Time to see how many leaks we got. Hopefully none. Hoses are hooked up. Don't have heater hoses to deal with. Anything running out yet? I don't hear any dripping. Try this again without the battery dying. Leaks yet?
I didn't see any.
So far so good. All right, from here, I want to get the airbag stuff straightened out, at least the compressor and valves mounted. But since we have the rib nut stuff out, I think I'm going to go ahead and mount the battery. I've got a bracket that was bolted to the firewall of my, again, square body. I'm going to do the same here. It's specific for an optimal battery. So since we're here and have the rib nut stuff out, I'm going to go ahead and mount it here. That way that part's done. And then we'll jump back there. This is the bracket I was talking about. Has a top as well. I'm going to use this hole. That should be the right size for a rib nut. I'm going to line the top left one up there. Get it installed, and then we can just mark the other ones. That should be far enough away from the exhaust and everything else. Everything's kind of a tight fit in here. So start with a rib nut there. We'll get this mounted up. Mark some other holes. Get it installed. They're all uneven. There's other holes, but none of them are going to line up that way. So we're just going to have to stick to the one and make our own, I think. Okay.
I will actually watch you today.
This is obviously specifically for a Optima battery, and I bought this years ago off Amazon. I don't remember. I don't have a link for you, but I'm sure if you search Optima battery bracket or something along those lines, you'll come up with something. course, depending on your battery group size as well. Our battery cables are tied off to the back of the cylinder head, I believe.
Yeah, I think you put them in a thingy-jigger.
Obviously, these are way too long, but we can clamp these up. I have new ends to put on here. And hook those up, and then we can just do a body ground, honestly, to one of these bolts. All right. Not gonna worry about hooking up the battery though until all the rest of the stuff's done. This other wire comes off of the starter. That's gonna run to our main fuse to power our fuse block and stuff like that. So, all right, on to the compressors and stuff. All right, after we did the bed frame video, Boss Lady and I stuck around and kind of played with airbag stuff. I want to make sure our valves and all that stuff worked, and those do. And I got a comment that said that valve block was really good 20 years ago, and if it works great, it works great. That all seems to work. He said the issue with that is you have to run, well, I can't really pull it off, but there's 2 feed valves and 2 exhaust valves. So 1 front and 1 rear of each. So what you have to do is tee the front system together and tee the 2 rear systems together, or the 2 rear airbags together. The problem with that is as you go around a corner, like if you make a left-hand turn, you're putting weight on the right-hand side of the vehicle, and it'll push the air from this bag into this bag, essentially giving you a lot of body roll. The better way to do that is to have each one separated. So you would actually need 8 valves, and each valve and each line. So you would have 1 line running from your valve block to each airbag, if that makes sense. Again, I'm not very knowledgeable when it comes to airbag stuff, so I'm relying on internet and comments and whatnot. He suggested I believe it was AccuAir valve block, and then I believe an AVS controller. He said for a simple setup, and I appreciate that, but it was $550 for a valve block and another $189 for a controller. No.
We've spent plenty of money on this project. It's not like everything is...
Well, what started out as cheap airbags, cheap 4-link, ended up having to replace airbags, stuff like that. We've already, the credit card's on fire already. So we ended up going on Amazon, or I did, and found this setup, and I don't even know if it has a name. But it did have extremely good reviews. I could look up the name, and I'll put a link in the description below. I don't see a name on here. So this is all a all-inclusive unit. It has 8 valves in it. Intake and exhaust, so airline in would feed the bags, 1, 2, 3, 4 bags, and then the exhaust on the other side. The neat thing about this is it comes with the controller that literally just plugs into it. I don't have to wire all that stuff. And then it has switches, so like middle would be the entire system up or down. Middle top would be front, both rear, left side, right side, and then each bag individually. And the other cool thing about this one is it came with a gauge setup. So each one of these wires will plug into a pressure sensor, and at the very top you'll have tank pressure, and then left, right, front, left, right, rear. So all in one gauge you'll have 5 different pressures.
Like this.
Yeah, so that picture there. So that breaks it down a little bit. Each bag gets its own airline. Each pressure sensor goes into the gauge, as well as a pressure sensor into the tank. if we put it in the tank or if we put it into the valve block somewhere, whatever. So again, I don't have to wire any of that stuff. One side of this goes into the pressure sensor, the other side plugs into the back of the gauge. I don't have to run a bunch of wires. The only thing I have to do is, that is a power and ground for the gauge itself, and the end of, where'd the block go?
Right in front of it?
Yeah, this guy. Power and ground for the actual valve system. I don't have to run a wire or a couple wires to each valve. That'll make my life a little easier. This did have really good reviews. I'm literally taking a gamble here, a shot in the dark. Hopefully this works out and works long term. Time will tell. Other than that, while we were messing with the tanks, powered up the compressor, goes through the pressure valve. The pressure valve is set at 175 psi. It took forever to pump those two tanks up. So we ordered a second compressor to run in tandem, so they will both fill up the tanks, and hopefully that'll work a lot better. That's actually a very common practice for airbag setups, from my understanding.
Somebody had a good old time ordering on all of the websites the other night.
It was a lot. And I don't know what I did with it. I just had it.
Just had what?
The tea. So we put a we just put in a quick elbow and fitting here to run the one tank. Steel is not good for air systems because, you know, moisture, compressed air makes moisture, and moisture and rust obviously don't, or moisture and steel obviously don't get along. So I did get a brass fitting to put in, as well as a brass tee. So that will go in with probably that adapter, and these two lines will go in together into the tee to feed the air tanks. Another note is you should be running a air to water separator, and I forgot to order one. So I will have to add an air to water separator between the tanks and the compressors. I'm hoping all this is making sense. It makes sense in my head.
So eventually you're going to have to put an air to water separator between these two?
Yeah, so I'll probably put it between, it'll end up like that, and there'll be a water separator. So it catches the water before it goes in the tanks. Water in the tanks isn't the end of the world, but we don't want water going through our valves.
Okay.
And causing problems and sticking and that kind of stuff. So sooner than later, we need to get a water separator. All that to say, I need to make tabs to mount our compressor, and I need to make tabs to mount the valve block. And then we can actually get to wiring, which is the whole point.
Well, I mean, this is wiring.
Yeah. But we'll have to run like a couple power wires back to compressors, which is why I wanted them in place. We should be able to just ground to the frame, of course. The valve switch deal where that plug is needs a power on most likely ignition source, and a ground, and again, we can just ground it to the frame. Good thing about that wire harness setup is it has circuits for everything. Like there's a fuel pump circuit that runs down the frame rail. We don't have a fuel pump, but we will have an ignition source wire back here, is my point. So we can make this all work, is what I'm getting at. So we're gonna whip up tabs real quick. If you saw the bed frame video, it's going to be the same thing. These little tabs right here, it's 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch angle iron that I cut at, I don't remember, 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch, something like that. I'll measure it, and then just weld them to the bar here. So 4 tabs for that. I think we're going to need 4 tabs for that. Weld those up, and then we can actually get to wiring.
It's going
Why
to be
are you so
a while.
close?
You keep moving closer.
All right, get to work. All right, made some tabs for compressor and the valves. Kind of pre-wired those. I just kind of tossed them up there out of the way. Each end is labeled going off of that paper that I dropped. I think it's down there.
It's under the gas tank.
Is it? So we have, I believe, right rear, left rear. This one is right rear, left rear. I did plumb in the rear. That's working. And again, just the rear on the controller, I guess you call it. And then you can do left and right individually if you wanted to, for whatever reason. I don't know why you would, but you know, if you're sitting a little uneven, I guess, you can adjust side to side. But yeah, I didn't put a lot of pressure in the tank because I had this little jumper wire running the both compressors, and it started smoking. Apparently that gauge isn't big enough, but yeah, seems to be working. I think we're about out of air now, but all right. So got a late start like I always do. It is what it is. Radiator's in. This stuff's mounted. So first thing tomorrow morning, we are mounting the fuse block and running wires. And from there, we'll get the wires ran. We'll get everything terminated, all headlights, turn signals, marker lights, brake lights, all that stuff. Run wires back to run these compressors, run wires back to run these valves, and we're driving. It is Friday evening, so we have the next 2 days to just rock away. Hopefully the weather holds. It's still raining because we've been in a drought, southern Georgia or northern Georgia rather, here in the south. It's been a drought per, whatever. And now we're getting like a week and a half straight of rain, which, we need it. It is what it is. But it makes it hard to go outside and do things. Anyway, if you watched the tractor video, you saw how kind of muddy it was. All right, gonna quit blabbing. We're gonna go get some supper and wire in tomorrow. See you guys tomorrow. Good morning. It is wiring day. So again, this is a fuse box and wire harness by Easy Wiring. They're super cheap. They work pretty good. Haven't had any issues. So I know it looks like a lot, but it is broken down into separate sections. Like this one is, all the wires are marked with where they go. Power door locks, dimmer switch power, that kind of stuff. So that's under dash. This one is headlights, turn signal switch, that kind of stuff, also under dash. Trunk light we don't have, rear turn, backup lights we don't have. So that is the rear harness. And then this one is all headlights, turn signals, alternator power, that kind of stuff. So that will run out the front. So before we do anything else, we need to get our fuse box mounted. I think we're going to start with getting everything inside the cab handled, is the idea. And then we'll move to the outside, since we have to have doors open and all that stuff, and then we're going to have to put it up in the air. I have an idea of, we'll walk over here real quick. There's a hole down under the firewall here. You're not going to be able to see it. It's where the old dimmer switch was. I think all of our wiring is going to come out there, and we'll come across and run this inner fender for headlights and all that stuff. Got to figure out where to mount horns as well. Part of the harness will go that way, and then down the frame rail, that'll be our rear harness. And as it crosses the frame rail, we'll jump over to the engine, and that'll be our engine harness. So I think everything that comes out of the firewall will stay down low. We also got to figure out where to put that mega fuse. It's going to have to go on the firewall here somewhere, and then that main wire from the starter will have to come up to it. Other than that, we've got a bunch of relays to run. We're going to have to add extra power wires off our mega fuse for, this kit does not have headlight relays. I like to run headlight relays separately, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. Also need main powers for the fans and main powers to run back for the compressors. There's a lot, but like I said, once you start breaking it down and separating, it's not that bad. Take it section by section, and you can get through it pretty easy. It just takes a lot of time. So I'm going to start with mounting the fuse block. I thought it came with screws. It does not. I believe what we did on the Boss Lady's Galaxy, I think we just marked, drilled, and did rib nuts on those also. So we'll end up mounting this under the dash as high as we can get it with a couple bolts. So let me do that, and then we'll get into gauges, headlight switch, ignition switch.
You can say the word.
If I can, I can't speak right. Yeah.
Dome light, everything inside.
Dome light, all that stuff inside, and then we'll move to the outside. We got the fuse box mounted up under the dash, and you'll notice a couple things. For one, it's crooked, because why not? The top bolt, I used an existing hole that was already there, rather than drill more holes than I had to, and where it lined up, the bottom would have been right across that rib in the firewall, and I wanted to stay away from that. So I ended up making it a little crooked. Once you're sitting in here, or if you're getting in and out, you won't actually see it anyway, so being crooked, it's not a big deal. The other thing you'll notice is it's actually upside down. All the wiring came out the bottom, and I'd rather it come out the top, and rather than it being all, taking all the zip ties off and making an absolute chaotic mess, I just flipped it upside down. It's not the end of the world. It'll be just fine. This is where it looks extremely messy. And obviously there's a bunch of wires here, but once you separate them out, they're not that big of a deal. For instance, these two wires go to the headlight switch, which will be in this hole, so they'll run straight up. All of these go to our turn signal switch, which is this connector here. The kit does come with a connector for that. This bunch of wires is all dash, and those two bunches there are front and rear lights and engine. So all of those will hopefully fit through that hole. That's the hole I was talking about on the firewall. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes here separating this stuff, getting them to a kind of a location, and then we can actually start making connections. You're making racket.
I'm collecting supplies.
Yeah, she brought over the ignition switch, headlight switch, dimmer switch. Dimmer switch wires here. It'll get mounted on the floor over here, wherever's kind of comfortable, but out of the way. All right, cut all these zip ties, run these to an area. The only change I'll need to make is, for whatever reason, the electric fan control wire, so what will control our relay, is in the inside dash harness. I'm going to run that out with our other stuff. I've got a lot of this separated, and I've actually made a couple mistakes in what I told you before. Originally I said these were headlight switch. They're not. They're actually ignition. Headlight wiring is down here. The other mistake I made was I said that the fan wiring ran inside the dash harness. There's actually two marked fan. One runs out for the actual radiator fans. The other fan is for like heater and AC fan. So those are two separate wires. The kit does come with very rudimentary wiring schematics. We did fish wires out through the floor. They don't fit with the grommet, unfortunately, but I think once we have them loomed and like that plastic loom stuff, it'll be fine. We have these separated out here. This is all rear harness, excuse me, and this is all headlight and engine harness. I want to finish inside the dash. You'll see I have everything kind of separated. This is all headlight and turn signal stuff that's going to end up in this side. This whole bunch of wires is actually not getting used. There's like heat and AC stuff we don't have yet. Power windows, power locks, cigarette lighter we don't have. Cruise control. backup lights, that kind of stuff. We don't need any of that. So it'll get rolled up and probably tied to the back of that brace. So they'll be there in case we want to add them later. Like there's radio wires in here. If we decide to, she is fiddling with that. If we decide to add radio later, the radio wires will be sitting there and ready to go. Same with cigarette lighter. I believe this is where the cigarette lighter would go originally. This is wiper switch, throttle. I believe that was cigarette lighter. We'll probably add something later, you know, charging phones or whatever. So I think we're gonna work left to right. I want to start with the dimmer switch. For instance, this wire goes to the dimmer switch. We need to get that mounted. This blue wire will be power from the headlight switch. And then this other green wire is actually the headlight, or the, excuse me, the high beam indicator. So it'll have to be run up to our instrument panel, our gauge cluster, which is all this stuff here. So we're going to start here, get that mounted. I'm going to tie up that harness and figure out a way to make it a little neater. Remember, we are doing like the felt. Is it felt or cardboard or whatever? The original firewall deal I have to reinstall. And then we're going to run carpet up to probably where the column is.
I think it's cardboard with insulation on the back.
Yeah, anyway. So all this stuff will be hidden. And if I tie this up over this way, the clutch won't contact it. And if we do the dimmer switch kind of in this area, you won't be hitting the harness, and all this stuff will go up. So yeah, start with the left side here, work our way this way. We're only going as far as ignition switch and wipers, and then we can move to all the outside stuff. I'm excited to show you the instrument cluster that I got too. It looks pretty cool. I mounted the dome light or dimmer switch to a spot that seems comfortable sitting in here. All of this stuff is headlight switch, which is what we're going to do next. This white wire is power for dome light, and it's like 1.5 miles long because you're meant to run it down like inside a car to your dome light. We left our original wiring in place that runs up through the cab. There is a terminal on the headlight switch. I believe it is this one that actually provides a ground signal for dome light. So when you turn all the way, your knob all the way, it turns the dome light on. So I think what we're gonna do is this white wire comes out of the fuse box. We're gonna tie into one of these wires to power the dome light, and then the other one will just hook into this terminal. We don't have door switches or anything, so the dome light will only work off of the actual headlight switch. And then we have red is power in, blue is power out that goes to our dimmer switch. And then one of these is tail light, and the other one was front marker. And I think the front marker one, it doesn't give you an actual illumination wire to the dash. At least I couldn't find one. So one of these wires that gets cut off, we're gonna run to the dash to run our illumination. And that'll work on our dimmer switch separately. We're not gonna hook it to the tail or park. It'll be hooked to the illumination circuit. It'll just say one or the other. So, we don't need all these wires. I do wanna have a little bit of extra. Essentially, the way this is going in is actually what I consider to be upside down. Wires pointing down. So I'm probably going to cut off about, I don't know, that much or so. So I have a little slack. We can tie it up in there afterwards. Nothing's hooked up, of course, so. And then I'm going to need probably blue spade bits, or spade terminals rather. And we'll start hooking this stuff up. It doesn't give you a specific diagram for headlight switch, so I had to look that up online, just Google image which terminal is going to go to which. Again, that one's, I'm sure, dome. Main in for headlamps. Okay. I highly recommend, if you're doing any kind of wiring, to get a good set of crimpers. Don't use those auto parts store ones. They're terrible. And these are just Amazon terminals. They got heat shrink built onto them. Not a big deal for inside the cab, but outside they're pretty handy. Power in. Headlight out. That's going to go to there. Tail light, front park light, and then illumination. Let me make those connections real quick. So forget everything I just said about hooking this headlight switch up. I thought, man, this is a painless wiring company headlight switch. It should come with a schematic. It came with a schematic, and it came with a connector and terminal ends. So I didn't have to do the crimp-on connectors at all. Well, that style. Everything hooked up. This is the wire that's going to run illumination for our cluster. Per the schematic, it has a separate power in for taillights. I don't have that wire. There's nothing that says taillights on our fuse block, as well as no actual taillight power that I found. So I just teed off of our main power in. Remember, our headlights, I plan on running relays. So this big red wire will run our tail lights and our park lights, and it'll only run a relay for whichever high or low beam we're running. So it shouldn't be drawing too much amperage. As far as our turn signal switch, that's all these wires. The kit does come with a connector for this. It's just a matter of matching up these wires. So I'm going to do that real quick. We'll tie it up high up in there, out of our way, and then we'll move on to ignition switch. All right, got our turn signal switch tied up back here. That coil there is all the extra wires we're not going to use. This loom here should all be cluster, except for the orange and white. We got to do a brake light switch still, which I'm hoping will work out the way I want it to. We will see. We'll get to that in a minute. And next will be ignition switch. I did get a somewhere. I just had it in my hand right there. This is a painless ignition switch. It does not have instructions because it is labeled on the back. So pretty straightforward. Battery plus in, ignition. So ignition to the fuse box as well as ignition to the coil, an accessory wire, and a start wire. So here we have red and black hooked together. So we'll probably just cut the black wire off. I think that's what we did before, tape it up. Purple is out to the starter. Pink is out to our coil. I believe orange was accessory, which leaves brown, which should be power to, just says ignition switch. I'll have to go down the line, but that should be power to our fuse block.
I think this is the same ignition switch we used in the van.
It is. It's the same exact one. You have some ring terminals for me? That.
I have everything but the heat gun.
That's because I dropped that over here. Heat shrink those real quick. Put connections, or connect them up to the switch. Again, power in. Purple is start. Pink is coil. Orange is accessory. That leaves brown, which I will double check it. but should be power to the fuse block. Yeah, there we go.
Ta-da!
Ignition switch.
To nowhere right this moment, but
Okay.
it will be somewhere.
Wow.
Profound, right?
That's pretty deep.
Go get some pliers and a instrument cluster thingy jigger.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
What?
Before we put the cluster in, well, we got to do the brake switch first. And are we doing the wipers? Since it's raining outside.
Yes.
Oh no, you have to hold a camera while I work and stand on my
I
head.
got a bum hand. There's a blue wire in there that you have to pull out for the wipers.
Yeah. All right, let me go get that kit out, see what it's going to take to install that.
Got a Michelin man hand.
Don't get in the middle of a cat fight.
The swelling's going down.
Dummy.
Alright, go get your box.
Alright, this is from LMC. It's just a electric motor or electric wiper conversion. Looks pretty straightforward. This spring comes off. That's where the arms connect. So disconnect those inside. Take these two screws out that are currently into the other motor. Pop that one out. Pop the switch out. Put this back in place. Arms back on. These connections go onto here somewhere according to the instructions. We got to figure out which ones go where. We do have a wiper power wire from our harness, so that'll connect into here, and then a simple ground. That's really all there is to it. So not much to show, so I'm just going to knock this out real quick, and yeah, should be pretty straightforward. I say that, and it'll take me half the day. So very difficult to show the actual work process of it, but hopefully this shows up. Couple screws to put the wiper motor in place, reattach the arms, and then just connect into the wiper switch, which is in the dash right here. So that completes everything inside except for brake light switch, which we're gonna have to do kind of custom, and gauge cluster. So let me show you what I got for brake light switch. This is the brake light switch that I got. It's very rudimentary. You attach the spring to the pedal, and as it pulls, it makes contact between these 2 points. This is a more typical like GM style. The brake pedal would have like a piece of angle iron usually that would hold this in. When you push the brake pedal out, or down rather, this would pop out and make contact. There's no easy way to do this. There's no good way to do it. This hole here in the pedal, if you see that, is originally where that piece of angle iron mounted. So whatever I do is gonna have to be kind of low. The higher you go up on the pedal, the farther the pedal has to go down to, you know, there's less travel this way, the higher you go, if that makes any sense. So I think what I'm gonna do, and I don't really like it, but I think we're gonna go around the pedal, if I can do this, laying across the way I am. And I'll have to cut just a slight notch. And I think I'm just gonna hose clamp this on, kind of the same way we did the Galaxy. That way when this pedal goes down, it'll pull that spring. I don't really see a better way to do it. This spring is too long to even mount it up anywhere up higher, and then you have to press the pedal harder to get brake lights. Where did I set the other one? Right here. So same with this one. If I mount this one up here somewhere, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb as well. It doesn't really matter what I do, I don't think.
This dash just isn't as deep as...
Yeah. Originally this had a pedal that went through the floor, and it had a switch that was a lever, and when the arm hit it, it would hit the lever. same idea, kind of. If we got something like this, or something like that up in here, I don't know that there would be enough pedal travel to make that work. So the only hose clamp I have that's big enough is way too big, and it doesn't fit through here. So I'm going to go over with a cutoff wheel and cut a little chunk out of this. So this works, and we'll have to cut the extra off. And then, like I said, I'll have to put a little bit of a notch in the back of the pedal. And then this orange and white wire will run to these two connections. I don't really like this, to be honest. I'm not real happy with it, but I don't know what else to do. Sometimes you got to make sacrifices.
We'll keep thinking and modifying for the future.
Yeah, so that is the other good thing, is it's just a hose clamp, so we can just pull the hose clamp off if we come up with something better.
Yeah, there's no...
More than likely it'll work, and I'll just leave it. So not ideal, but that should work. We got a notch for the spring to sit in, and if you watch this little pin, when you hit the brakes, that'll make contact.
Sorry.
So I'm just going to run these two wires down around to it, hook those up. Maybe I'll put some heat shrink on them or something so they'll kind of hide themselves. But yeah, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And unfortunately this time we got to do this. Bezel's pretty rough. Anyway, this is made by a company called Intellitronics. It's cheap. It was the cheapest I could find, honestly. I like the white back, and I prefer like actual analog gauges over digital. Already running into an issue. I was going to start wiring this, but the instructions are not that great. Big surprise. Fuel gauge. Yellow wire. Black and white. Black and yellow is optional. There is no black and yellow.
There's your option.
For the black wire is the ground. Pink is ignition. Red is constant, which we don't have a constant. We can steal it from the radio or run one from the fuse block. That's not that big of a deal. It uses a 2-wire temp sender, coolant temp, and 2-wire oil pressure. Blue wire to the water temp sensor. Okay, there's a blue wire here. Blue with black wire to the water temp sensor. There's not one. If your model does not have this wire, then run a ground wire from the G terminal on the sending unit to the ground. Okay, that's fair enough. Same with oil pressure gauge is orange, and the orange with black wire to the G, but if you don't have that, then you ground it out there. Tack, use the white wire. That's pretty straightforward. And then, no wait, tack is green wire.
Yeah, so what's a white?
Hang on. Yeah, tack was green wire. White is the speedometer, but this uses a 3-wire VSS. So you screw this guy into where your mechanical cable goes, and then you put this connector on it. And that has a red, white, and black. So I don't know if you use the same red and black here. It doesn't say. It just says white wire on sender to white wire on dash panel. Okay. Red wire to red with white wire on dash panel. Or switched 12 volt. Okay. Black wire on sender to black white wire on dash panel. That's pretty straightforward.
There's a black with white wire.
Exactly. And I don't know what any of these are. It doesn't say. There's zero information. So I'm assuming a couple of these will be turn signal, because there are turn signal indicators.
Somewhere.
Right here. Maybe. I don't know. One should be backlight for illumination. And I don't know what the rest of these are. So we have a white wire here, and something I didn't take into account on this harness is it does not have a setup for vehicle speed. So we need to run 3 wires for vehicle speed. Red, white, and black. Or at least we need to run the white wire. We could do a ground back there pretty easily, and 12-volt switch we could probably get pretty easily. There's a third brake light wire that runs back there. We don't need a third brake light. I think there's a trunk light wire that runs back there. We can grab them from up here, plug them into the fuse block, and then the fuel pump wire, again, that's 12-volt switched power. And realistically, all we're going to use that for is to run the valves and the relays for the air tanks. So we could probably tee off of that and run a vehicle speed.
There's reverse lights too.
Yeah, there's reverse light wires. So we are going to have to run at least 3 more wires, and I'm going to have to figure out what the rest of the stuff is, because these are actually buttons. I don't know if this has turn signals in it. It should.
This has a 2-wire connector as well, and
Right,
another sender.
So that's the oil pressure sender, and that is the coolant temp that we have to wire in. So basically what I'm saying is I really like the look of this. It's going to be a little more complicated than I thought it would be. Warranty void if removed. I'm going to have to do a little research tonight and figure out what's going on with this. So we'll come out in the morning. I'll do that tonight. Figure out what's what. See if I can figure out what these other wires are for, or if they're not used. I don't know if the buttons also... They look, what's the word? Translucent? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they double as turn signal lights, but... and I don't know if there's a high beam indicator.
They're probably like trip things.
Yeah, and for calibration, but... All right, so we'll come out in the morning, first thing, run a couple more wires out. Hopefully I'll know what these other wires do. Maybe I can find a better wiring diagram online. And then we can start on the external stuff. Literally need to hook this to that, and we're done in here. And then we can move on.
It's late, and everything takes so much longer than...
Forever. Yeah, that's the way it is. But I really, really, really want to be driving this tomorrow. So even if we just hook up brake lights in the engine.
And fuel.
Fuel?
We need gas.
We don't need a gas gauge to drive it.
Fuel pump's already hooked up.
Yeah, it's a mechanical fuel pump.
Mechanic.
What are you talking about? Shh. All right. She doesn't know what she's talking about. She's obviously tired. Her antibiotics are getting to her brain.
I need to take my dosage again.
It's been a long day. So we're going to call it a night for tonight, and we'll be back on it first thing in the morning. Hopefully we don't get a late start like we do every other time. See you in the morning. Good morning. So we did a little Googling last night, and it turns out the IntelliTronics installation guide website is down for maintenance, so that didn't work. Did some more searching, found these instructions for a 55 to 59 Chevy pickup. This is for a DP 6000 model. I'm assuming it's just a different version of this. This is a WL. This is their White Lightning cluster. So this one has a little more comprehensive instructions. It has more wire colors like the other one should have, I guess. So got this hooked up to a M12 battery, and what we discovered...
Let there be light.
Yep. So black is ground, of course. Red is hot all the time. Pink is ignition. Brown will be our high beam indicator. Gray with white is our right turn signal. Gray with black is our left turn signal. And what was the other? Purple is our dimmer. So we need to rewire the headlight switch slightly. The wire we ran to the actual rheostat on the headlight switch, we're not actually going to end up using the rheostat part of it at all. It says not to do that. It won't work correctly. This is designed to, when it gets power from the headlight switch, to dim it 50% so it's not blaring in your face. The actual rheostat part doesn't work because it's LED lights. The only other thing that this has that we're not going to use is TAN is a brake warning for like park brake. We don't have a park brake set up on ours, so we're not going to worry about that. The rest of this, I think we know what goes where. That being said, generally, I use these super cheap Amazon connectors. I think this whole kit was like 20 bucks. Comes with all the little terminals, couple different sizes. It's a good idea. If I ever have to pull the cluster out, I'd rather have a plug than having to cut all the wires or figuring out which spade connector goes where or whatever. So these have both sides. So it makes a nice, simple, easy connection. None of these are insulated or weatherproof or anything, so they work, they work really good for inside stuff. We need a ignition source to run back to the speedometer little sensor. We'll ground it back there. It needs the white wire for a signal wire, an ignition source, and a ground. I believe the backup wire is already a pink wire. We obviously don't have backup lights on this. So I'm gonna run the backup wire in conjunction with our pink wire here, so it'll pick up the same ignition source, if that makes sense. Does it, kind of?
Sure.
Sure? You don't know. Alright, I think I got this the way it needs to be. I did one male and one female on each side, so you can't mix them up. The backup wire is actually green. I tied that into the ignition power for the gauges, so that'll run our ignition power for our speedo. Other than that, the only other thing we had to do was add a ground, which ran up to our brace here. So plug that in, and the only other thing I need to change is the headlight switch. So I need to take the wire out of the dimmer part of it. Yeah, the one that goes to the instrument cluster, and tie it either into park light or tail light. I'm lost this morning. All right, I'm dying to see what this looks like in here. So let's just do that. And then maybe that'll make my brain work. Probably not. Okay. Part of the reason I like doing these connectors, or this is the reason, again, we can get this cluster out easily if we need to later.
You take clusters out entirely too often.
Okay. Like. Now what if it doesn't fit because the column's in the way?
And we can't get the bezel off or on from the other side.
No, well, apparently I'm dropping the column. All right, I'm going to leave this like this. Okay, now it's stuck. What's happening?
You're scratching the dash.
Well, it's stuck, so. Got it. No, I don't got it. Arcade's not starting off very good. I'm going to leave it like that. I want to test everything, make sure it works before we actually get it in there anyway. Skip ahead just a little bit. Mounted our, it's called a mega fuse. The wiring kit comes with what's called a fusible link. You put that in line and that's a wire that's designed to melt with high amperage. I don't really like using them. I prefer this style. This is what's called, again, a mega fuse. So this is a 125 amp fuse, and what that's going to do is the fuse block protects each individual circuit. This will protect everything. So if you have a heavy gauge wire that's shorted to ground or something like that, this will protect that rather than burning up circuits inside. So a couple self tappers on here. This is where it's going to get probably a little bit messy. So this main wire comes off the main starter lug. So we have B plus from the battery, or positive, down to the main starter lug. This one comes up, it's going to run one side of our fuse. In our front engine harness wire, what's called solenoid wire, that's actually what powers the B plus to the fuse block. So it'll go to the other side, as well as any main wires we're going to run secondary, such as main power to fans, main power to the relays for the headlights, main powers for the compressors. All that stuff's going to come off of this side, so it'll all be protected by this main fuse. I am going to run individual inline fuses off of this. If we have a compressor short out, I don't want to blow this fuse, thus taking out power to the fuse block and shutting the whole pickup down. We're still going to protect individual circuits, but the alternator will run through here, for instance, that kind of stuff. So this is where it gets a little bit messy. We got to pull that wire out. It's got to run up. This is heat resistant coating or sheathing, insulation, whatever you want to call it. We've already run a piece of heat shrink down. So the heat shrink will go just inside through the firewall. We'll run this into it, heat shrink that so it's nice and protected and safe, and then we'll just run regular loom like this. I use this braided split loom. It makes it very neat and clean. I don't like that corrugated stuff, and I am a little bit particular about my wiring. She's smiling behind the camera and starting to giggle because some might say anal about my wiring. I like it to be clean and neat. I don't like multiple color wires just zip tied around. So that being said, this is rear. It's going to run down to the frame rail right there. It'll run back. This main harness we've got to actually split off. One's going to come this direction to run the headlights. The other one's going to go that direction to run the engine.
I'll be honest, I'm surprised you didn't loom the battery cables, so.
We're not done.
I know.
All right, so like I said, heat shrink around this guy, which is going to be a bit of a pain. Motorcycle going by. A couple of them. So again, heat shrink. This is all Amazon stuff. It's nothing special. Does work pretty well. This is, I believe, 3:1, so it shrinks 3 sizes. I'm not sure how that works. I'm not a scientist. And this does have the adhesive inside, so I like to use that stuff so it kind of glues everything together. All right, this one is tail. I think this one can go ahead and go, but we won't yet. That one we've got to separate. We've got to pull out the solenoid wire. The other one little caveat: if you use an 80 amp or higher alternator, it recommends a bypass wire rather than just running this alternator wire inside. So it's actually going to come up and tee together, essentially connecting it to the starter. It wants you to run directly from alternator to starter. You got all that? Because I don't.
I've just been waiting on you.
Made most of our connections here at the Mega Fuse. This comes directly from the starter, like I said, to power it. One of these is the fuse block main power. One is the alternator wire. It's going to go from the alternator to here and then in wherever it goes in this harness. I ran 2 wires to the back separately, forgot to run it in that harness, so it's separate. That's going to power our air tank compressors. The other 2 will run up with the headlight harness, and that'll run our headlight relays. I am putting LED lights, headlights in this, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, or in a little bit, but it probably doesn't need relays, but we're gonna run them anyway since we're here. The plan is, if there was such a thing, I think I'm gonna do 2 relays on this side for headlights, 2 relays on this side for our 2 fans. Instead of running wires all the way around to here, I think we're just gonna come off the battery and run this side for the fan side. There's a helicopter going by because there's always background noise. I do apologize. Yeah, so it'll just be easier to just run directly from the battery. Everything else underneath, I think, is kind of where it needs to go, at least started. So we're gonna throw this thing up in the air. We'll show you that. And then probably start with taillight harness and get that knocked out, right? And then move to whatever, either engine or up front. So underneath, it looks like a little bit of a jumbled mess, but it's not really. We come out of our firewall and split. One side goes this way. It's going to run, how's the best way to show this? Basically, I think I'm planning on running it up the inside of the fender, inner fender, right to the headlight on this side, and then we'll jump it across to the other. This is a little difficult to show. I'm sorry about that, but this is all taillight harness. It will run to the back with our separated power wires for our compressor. And then this one is engine, and it will run up the back to the back side of the intake and run our stuff on our engine, oil pressure, coolant temp, alternator, that kind of stuff. So I think we're starting, like I said, with taillight, and that should finish up under here. Probably not, because we got to run 2 front air lines and wires for the valves. What?
I wound all these up, stuck them up there on the control arm, and they just...
No, I wasn't watching. All right, you want to see about some lunch?
Yeah, since
it's almost 1 o'clock already.
It's after 1.
It's after 1. All right. If you want to go and do that, I'll run the wire down the rear.
Here, I got presents for you.
All right, it's quite a bit later. We got quite a bit done. So our 2 main wires, 2 main red wires come up from come back from the main mega fuse. That goes into the bottom side of those relays to feed the motors rather. Top 2 go to each motor. The yellow wire is the fuel pump wire. That's a 20 amp circuit. Should be plenty to handle what we need. So anytime the ignition's on, that'll have power. The ground side is controlled by the pressure switch. And then everything is grounded. I don't know if this shows very well, but that drilled and tapped a bolt there and a bolt under the relays in order to ground everything. I did tee off the fuel pump wire to run the valves. Like I said, it's a 20 amp circuit. It should be enough to just run 2 relays and the switch setup. Also hooked up fuel level, and ran our taillight wires and ran our left taillight. It's all installed, ready to go. We got all new stuff. So on this side, I wanted to show you what we were doing because we kind of had to modify it. Well, did have to modify it. So this is the taillight assembly. The bulb would go in that side, obviously. This side would have another connector that connects onto it. I thought it came with it. It didn't. This is a front marker light. I thought it came wired this way. It does not. And I wasn't able to get anything in time. So I went to the parts store, got these super cheap little sockets. I think they were like $6. And if we cut the back of this off, this will fit in there and work our light. These are all grounded through the body, which is the way it was done in the 50s and 60s. So we're going to start with cutting this thing off.
It's hanging on for dear life.
I hate that these don't have a stop. Where did our drill go? Right here. And we need to open this hole up just a little bit. This is where it gets a little sketchy because it's hard to hold this. Like that. That's why I'm using a small drill with not a lot of power. All right. So bend all these in just a little bit. That. And we'll bend them all back up. Yeah. Essentially made our own taillight socket.
Ta-da! Made our own out of 2 pieces that we bought.
Huh?
Said made our own out of 2 pieces that we purchased.
Yeah.
Because why would anything be easy with this truck?
Yep. Let me get my little tester battery. Round to the body. One of these. Oh, doesn't fit real well. I guess we round it there. Doesn't really matter. One of these should be dimmer. Whoa. One of these should be dimmer. Mm-hmm. And one should be brighter.
Yep.
So, tail, brake and turn. Tail. Tail's on the left. All right. Brown is tail, green is turn and brake. Let me hook those up real quick and then we'll put the lens and stuff together. This does have a top and bottom. There's a notch at the bottom, so if any moisture or water gets in, it has a place to drain. There's 2 little, I call them U-clips, but they're designed for screws to go into. I don't know what they're actually called. I had a heck of a time getting these screws started on the other one. Hopefully, this one's not a fight. It's gonna be. Now what's happening?
Now it's decided that it's keeping it.
Okay, well, it won't tighten down and it won't loosen up. So now what happened? That don't make no sense. It won't tighten down, it won't come out. I think these screws are a little short. I'll grab one of these. Remember what I said about they're kind of a pain to get in?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was because the original like U-clips were on that side. But I guess not. This does not want to have taillights in it.
Well, the state says we need them.
Okay, I win. All right. I'll go in the 40 to oh God. I don't know where that went. That one's stripping already. That's trying to crack. Let's loosen that one a hair. Okay. 5 screws and 2 wires. How hard can it be? All right, I think all we have left underneath is 2 front shocks, which we got Calvert Racing. They were the only ones that were the right size. I measured with this thing all the way down 10.5 inches center to center. They were 14.5 inch all at what we determined to be right height. These ones are 10.5 fully compressed, so hopefully that works. And I think they're 15 3/4 of an inch. So we have a little more than an inch of up travel, which isn't a lot, but that's the closest I could get to make work. So we got to put those in. And then we got to run 2 air lines to the front bags. We did run all of our wiring up and into the cab. There's a hole at the back of the cab where the old fuel line went in. So we ran those, loomed them, put those all in place. We haven't done the, what you call it, gauge or any of that stuff. They're just stuck in the cab for now. So a couple air lines, we'll put a couple shocks on, and then we'll move to headlights and engine and all that stuff. Okay, where are we? Who are we? What's happening?
I have no idea.
Skipped ahead a little bit, went ahead and ran the front lines to the airbags. I think all that's finished back there. The only thing that's left is all the headlight stuff and the engine stuff. So engine stuff next. This should be pretty straightforward. Got a red wire to run up to the alternator. We've got oil pressure and coolant temp. What was pink? Pink was ignition to the distributor. One of these purple wires is tachometer, also to the distributor. Got to run this line down, the purple wire down to the starter.
And there's a choke.
And that's the choke. White wire is a alternator exciter wire. This has a newer 1-wire alternator. We're not going to use that. This does have an AC compressor, but we have no heat, no AC, no nothing. So the AC compressor wire will tie off as well. So these two wires will probably run up in the harness. We'll double them back, zip tie them or whatever, and just leave them in the loom.
She's just there for looks.
Yeah, for now. So should be pretty straightforward stuff here. We'll run, because of the headers, we'll run the coolant temp. It's between 1 and 3. So I usually run it around the valve cover and around the front. Keep it away from the header pipe. Right here with the alternator wire, we'll just drop it down. We also need to run this ground wire for the fans. I completely forgot about that. Oh man.
Why do you keep forgetting about ground wires?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Because that's kind of come up here to a relay. I have two options. I can either run it down and around the back and pick up the, if you turn this way, pick up the battery wire, and then we're going to come off of here to run our hot wires down to the fan relay. The fan relays will be up here, but I'm going to run the wires this way. Or we run it around with our coolant temp wire and jump it across or under and run it with our headlight harness that's already over here. This is actually for our headlight relays anyway. Predicaments, predicaments, predicaments. I did not think about that at all. I forgot. All right, let me figure that out. Run a few wires and more of the same. So I charged on and realized I didn't record any of it, but engine stuff's done. Distributor's hooked up, 2 wires, ignition wire and tack. It's a little messy. I got to put a couple zip ties on it. Oil pressure's done. I came off of the oil pressure sending unit and grounded to that intake bolt I was talking about before. I opted to, instead of running a ground wire from the temp sensor down here, all the way back up and around, I have a big ground here that comes from the engine to the frame rail. So I don't know how well this shows up, but that's the temp gauge here. Green wire is the coolant temp signal wire, and then the ground I just grounded over here. The fan switch for the relay that we talked about would be easier to run all the way around. I decided wouldn't be easier. I dropped it over here. It's a little messier, I think, but we already have some wires down here low. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. The headlight harness runs on the back side of this inner fender. So I think I'll just drop it under the inner fender and bring it up around to it, and then we'll just run it across with the rest of the stuff. This is actually the power wire here for the relays. We popped through the inner fender. More importantly than any of that, we did battery connections, and we can start it. I know I said we were going to drive it today. We're not driving it today. It's already like 9:30 at night. The time got away. It's just the way it is. It takes forever. I want to hear it run, so I'm, in a better mood when I go to bed tonight. And then I'll come out here in the morning and we'll truck on. Literally all that's left is fans and headlights. I think tail lights and brake lights and all that stuff is done. Airbag stuff is all done other than the gauge and powering the gauge.
You need motivation to get out here in the morning.
Yeah. Well, where's my bottle of fuel? And oh, hey, look, it's right there.
It's not far.
Battery hooked up. No funny noises. No snaps, crackles, and pops. We'll put a little in there. Splash way too much, which is fine. And let's see if this thing will bark.
I put it in gear, so it'd stop rolling.
Come check these gauges out real quick. We have stuff everywhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna gauge cluster's just sitting in there, right?
Yeah, I didn't put any screws in there. I did loosen up the column, set that in place. Airbag compressors. Side note, I do probably want to take that wire that runs back there. It's the fuel pump wire. Run it on a toggle switch. If we're working on stuff or whatever, we can turn the compressors off that way easily. Success, at least partially. We're almost there. Home stretch. If weather cooperates, we are driving tomorrow. I know I said that already, but yeah, tomorrow. This time, I mean it.
But if it doesn't cooperate, we have windshield wipers.
We do have windshield wipers. I'd rather not do the first shakedown drive in a thunderstorm.
But if there was a thunderstorm,
I probably will. All right, bright and early tomorrow. See you in the morning. Good morning. Day 3 or 15 or something. I can't keep track. It's all running together. Came out this morning, looked around. What an absolute disaster this shop is. There's tools and wire and loom and heat shrink, and there's stuff everywhere. It took me 15 minutes to find the riv nut tool, and it was between the seats and the cab for some stupid reason. It took me another 10 minutes to find the stupid camera. So, couple things. Checked the weather this morning. Whatever storm was coming through has apparently gone around us. It's supposed to be 80 degrees and sunny all day, which is perfect. Other than that, I was thinking last night before I went to bed, decided since we're running LED headlights, I'm not going to bother with relays for the headlight circuits. LEDs draw significantly less power than a standard original style headlight bulb. So I don't think it's necessary. I'm not going to worry about it. If it becomes an issue later, it's easy enough to change. I bought Una something. MGL light is what that says. It said Unilight or something on Amazon, but regular old LEDs. I think these have like a turn signal or marker light in it or whatever. We're not going to use that. We're just going to use the high and low beam. I don't particularly care for the look of LED lights in older vehicles. The problem is we live in a fairly rural area. So for instance, in the morning, I leave for work at 6 a.m. Depending on the time of the year, it's usually pitch black outside. And it's 8 or 9 miles to get to the highway, and there are 0 street lamps. And I was having trouble like with my Blue C10, my normal daily driver, and I couldn't see anything. And I really don't want to hit a deer or some other wildlife or something, just trying to drive to work. Coming home from work, I usually take what we call the back way, but skip the highway, go around 2-lane all the way around the back. It usually takes about the same amount of time anyway, and it's a way nicer drive. Again, no street lamps, and depending on time of the year, it's dark outside. So put LEDs on the Blue C10, and it has made a huge difference. So we're gonna do the same in this. Like I said, I don't really care for the look of them as much, but necessary. Beneficial. I don't know about necessary, but beneficial. So what we got left to do today, wire up fans. The wires, hot wires for them are there. The ground wire that I ran last night, I looped under the radiator. It's up there ready to go. The fan ignition trigger for the relays is in the headlight harness. So we got to wire that up. We got to wire up 4 headlights and 2 marker lights. Put a hood on this thing. Nut and bolt check. And I think we're ready to drive. So I'm going to dive right in, and I think we'll start with the headlights and marker lights. I took our bezel out, coming up with a game plan. I've got all new headlight adjusters, and obviously we're doing new wiring. All these headlight adjuster little plastic brackets are all riveted in. The new stuff comes with like a screw and a nut. And I was looking, there's hardware all around this thing. So I think we're going to take this entire thing out and see if we can set up the headlights and adjusters and everything over on the bench. Looks like screw there, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 6 screws, and I think this whole thing will come out. That'll make life a lot easier. It also looks like it's glued in, so hopefully it'll come out of there without too much trouble. Let me give that a try real quick. The entire assembly came out pretty easily. I was a little worried about it being glued in. It did pop apart fairly simple. Did confirm our headlights fit in our buckets. So I think we'll start. These are our headlight adjusters. And like I said, they're riveted in. So I'm gonna go around, drill all these rivets out. It looks like the ground wire was riveted in. We'll have to get that out of there. Cut the wire out. We'll wipe this thing down real quick. New adjusters, reinstall the headlights, and we can mount this whole thing back in there. Go find a drill bit. I did not get new springs, so we'll have to be careful not to damage those or break them. All right, out with the old, in with the new. New ones just use screws, a little star washer and a nut. Go around, put all 4 of these in real quick, and we can get our headlights mounted. All right, all our adjusters are in. I spent a few minutes putting the headlights into the housings. They don't fit perfectly well. You can see it's sticking out on this side just a little bit. This screw's rusted in here. I couldn't get it out. There's one on that one as well. It should be fine. That's what headlight adjusters are for. I did spend a few minutes kind of making sure they were straight. Once they're installed, it's going to be a real pain to get these to turn. So from here, it's just a matter of hooking the spring on the one side, putting a couple adjuster screws in. This plug does fit through the hole in the back pretty easily. So rather than trying to make our connections in here and having an absolute mess, I think I'm gonna run these through, find a grommet that fits this. I should have something, and then we'll make all our connections on the outside. That'll make it more of a pain if we want to take the headlights out separately for any reason, but shouldn't have to. Another side note, the extra wire on these are actually for a daytime running light, which we're obviously not going to use, so we're just going to ignore that. Okay. Something like that. Go reinstall this one, get the other side knocked out, and we'll make our connections. Surprisingly enough, they don't look half bad. They are a little crooked. I did notice if you look at this one, the whole thing kind of leans this direction. I don't think the headlights are straight across. I think that whole assembly kind of angles down a little bit. I'll adjust those later, tinker with them. I've got to actually adjust the headlights anyway. But they look okay. I'm okay with it. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of LEDs in older vehicles, but given my situation, I think I need them. So we have all the wiring ran up to the front already for headlights. So let's get those wired in, marker lights, and then we got fans to do. With the headlights installed, you can see our connectors hanging out back here. I ran our headlight harness up across and around to where it goes in the firewall. Should have a high beam, low beam marker for the marker lights and left and right turn. Gray wire is the fan ignition source. Hopefully we don't have to extend that. It's got to go up into there. So we need to hook up high beam, low beam, and as far as ground on both sides somehow, I don't know if that shows up, but there's a hole right there that I forgot to put a bolt in when I put this whole front end together. So that works out. It's the same on both sides. I don't know what I did, but whatever. We'll just ground right to there. I'll find a heavy gauge black wire. You'll notice I do have a relay mounted under here. It should be out of the way of everything. This actually moves out as it comes up. We're fairly close to the outer fender. Inside of the fender, I should say. This, on the other side of this, is our line lock. So I think I'm going to pull this gray wire back just a little bit. Use that to feed our ignition source for this relay as well. I did not run a wire out here for that either because I forgot. This purple wire is power antenna, and we're obviously not running a power antenna on this. So I'll probably use that as our ground source for said line lock. We'll find it under the dash somewhere, and then I put a button on the shifter knob that will supply our ground. So we'll tie the other end of this wire into that. I made up these little connectors. Well, I didn't make them up. I bought these connectors, again, from Amazon. This should be called the Amazon Riv Nut Special, to be honest. Black is ground. I believe yellow is low beam and red is high beam. We will double check that before we make our connections, but plug these in, wire up some wires, and we should have working headlights. Start with hooking these up. Just like that. Again, these are those daytime running light wires. We're not going to worry about those at all. Let me get my little M12 battery with the wires. Yellow is low and red is high. That should be brighter than that. So yellow low beam, red is high. Make up those connections real quick. And then we got to fish it over to the other side. Wires are ran across into these headlights. They're all hooked up. Just ran it across the top of the kind of radiator support here. Nice and neat. That's going to be covered. This wire here, or two wires, will be right front turn signal and marker light. And then this will be left side. From here we should have working headlights. It should be low beam and high beam. That all appears to be working. Oh, apparently the high beam indicator works without the ignition on. It's interesting. Okay. A couple marker lights to pop in. We are replacing the entire unit. Where'd they go? They had a clear lens option and a amber lens option. This already had clear, so I went back with clear. I did swap out for an amber bulb though, because it had a clear bulb in it. So pop the grill off. It looks like it's just 2 nuts. To swap those out, a couple wires on each side, and then we're a fan away from electrical being done, or 99% anyway. All right, headlights are in, marker lights are in. It was just 2 wires each. Simple, just swapping them out, no big deal. All that's left is relays for the fans, which are installed and ready to go, and all my wires are here. Relays are a good idea for high loads. Relay makes it so you get your power directly from a battery instead of going through like switches and stuff like that. Real quick, we can draw this out. Trying to get done because I want to drive it. It's getting so close. So relay is basically a switch. You got one line in and out on the other side with a coil. That looks terrible. In our case, we are doing ignition. That is our fan wire that we ran up front. So ignition there. Ground is going to be done through the coolant switch. That's that small black wire that I ran down under the radiator. The other side is a switched side. B plus on one and the fan on the other. So when you have B plus on the one side, and when that coolant switch gets to, I believe this one's 200 degrees on and 185 off, when that gets to 200 degrees, it'll create a ground, energize this coil, and cause this switch to come over and make a connection between B plus and the fan, hence turning the fans on. So the fan gets its load directly from the battery, or in our case, the mega fuse. That's better than that ignition wire, small ignition wire, straight powering the fans. It's just, it's a high load going through the smaller circuit, if that makes sense. It's just a better way of doing it. I was going to do the same thing for the headlights, but again, headlights are all LED, so I don't think it's really necessary. They're not a high load. That being said, before I did LEDs in my daily driver, I did have a problem with the dimmer switch, and the dimmer switch actually melted because of the high load. So I had to put relays in that, and then went to LEDs anyway. But so you can't, that can cause a problem. Remember I said I take the back way home. No street lights, no nothing. Came around, turned on to Highway 53, went to turn the high beams off, and all the lights went out. Hit the dimmer switch again, nothing happened. I was completely black and dark and couldn't see nothing on a 2-lane windy road that goes down into a valley. Luckily, I carry a few tools, odds and ends, a little bit of wiring stuff. Was able to just jump it on the side of the road, but can get dangerous. So be careful of that. So power wires in from the mega fuse, power wires out to the fans themselves. I already wired those into these red wires and just grounded them to the core support. This is the fan ignition hot and the ground that comes from our coolant temp switch. So it's just a matter of jumping these onto these 2 relays and these fans will be ready to go. And that is it for the wiring, at least all we're doing now. We are set up for our line lock, which I'm not overly concerned about at the moment. The wire's just sticking through. Excuse me. We've got to do the gauge for the airbags. We've got to do, like I said, I wanted to run a toggle switch on the compressors so they're not running constantly if we just need the key on for something. And there was one or two other things. Oh, I have the horn wire ran, got to hook up, actually mount horns. A bunch of little stuff like that, but main wiring will be done. I'm gonna hook these up. We're gonna start this thing, let it run, bleed the cooling system, check fluids. I need to nut and bolt check this whole thing before we put it on the road. Remember, we did all suspension and everything. Want to make sure everything's good. Don't want a control arm falling off. That would be bad. That kind of stuff. And then we can throw the hood on and go. What do you think?
Okay. Sure.
Oh, we don't have a tag light either, which it's not dark outside. But we do have to throw the tag on. That was the other thing. All right, 4 wires. Well, 6 wires.
6 connections.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. All right, I think we're ready to run this thing. Bring it up to temperature. Plenty of black oil in it. After it's run and got a little bit of drive time on it, I need to do all the fluid changes. All right. We ever put power steering fluid in it?
No.
No, we did.
Do we? Okay.
It's a little low, but there's some in it. All right, here we go. About 35 degrees, 36 degrees all in. Let it warm up, fans come on hopefully. Bleed the coolant, we should be ready to drive. All right, I know it's loud. It's time. Fuel station first, then we'll hit the road. first drive is a success, at least mostly. There are a few bugs to work out. Biggest one is drive shaft vibration. It's got a pretty hefty one. If you remember, we just kind of welded this thing together. We'll have to take it to a drive shaft shop, see if they can balance it. If not, we can have them retube it or build us one or whatever, since we have all the dimensions figured out. Other than that, one big thing that we didn't take into account, our kick panel vents are open, and it blew crap everywhere, all in our faces, our eyes, everywhere. That'll work itself out. It is what it is. Wasn't prepared for that. We got up to, I think, 60, but it was vibrating pretty good. It rides good, or at least seems to. When we went to turn around, it did have tire rub, so we got to figure out air pressures exactly, where it's going to be happiest, that kind of stuff. I mean, other than that, it's really good. I'm happy, extremely happy. Steering wheel's a little far away. It's a little weird. You feel kind of stretched out, and the pedals are a little high. These are all things that we can kind of tinker with and mess with. Obviously, we're not done with this thing yet. There's no bed floor. We still got some work to do on the interior. There's zero tuning done to this this carburetor. If you watch way back, this engine came out of my Rec 74, and I did a video on removing a Holley Sniper and putting this carburetor on, and wrecked it 2 days later. So this is not tuned, like, really at all. So it needs some tinkering here and there. Anything else?
Lights work.
Lights work. I think we forgot to show that. We could do that real quick. Marker lights work. We didn't show that. We did show the headlights, I think, shining off the shop door. Tail lights work. We had the brake pedal, and brake lights work. So our chintzy little brake light switch is at least working. It's you know, I'm not the happiest with it, but it was the best I can come up with, at least at the time. Turn signals are all working. Seemed to stay cool. Oil pressure was good. That kind of stuff. There was something else I was going to say, but I don't remember what the heck it is. This is, I think, day 4 now. It's been very busy. Brakes are a little spongy. That's another thing. They feel okay, but they're a little bit soft. They probably need one more bleed. But yeah, I'm beat. Remember at the beginning of this video when I said buckle in? It's going to be a long one. Yep, it was.
You were talking to yourself, huh?
Uh-huh.
Said, did you know you were talking to yourself?
Well, I knew it was going to be, well, I figured it'd take a couple days, but, you know, it always takes longer than you anticipate. But remember, we started with 0 wiring, no connectors, no nothing. We had to do it all, and it's still not quite done. I didn't finish the line lock. I want to add a toggle switch for the compressors, a couple other little things like that. Nothing major as far as the main stuff is done. Yeah, I have the horn wire ran, but I got to mount a horn, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I got to be able to honk at people. Got at least 4 thumbs up, and I think we put a total of 10 miles.
Oh my god.
So
I couldn't see. I don't
yeah,
know.
so it went good. It's got some kinks to work out before we can actually throw it on the road and put miles on it, but and there's more to do still, of course. So like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you have not subscribed, please do so. It helps a lot. People are watching, but they're not subscribing. If you hit the button, hit the notification bell. New content every week on Wednesday evenings. I try my best. Sometimes I miss it, but I do try my best. And yeah, I read all your comments.
You got your first dead bug.
I got my first dead bug on the windshield.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for hanging out. We appreciate you guys. Like I said, subscribe, hit the button for me. And I'm tired. I'm gonna go get cleaned up, have an adult beverage or 6, and we'll see you guys next time.